Good afternoon, everyone, and a very warm welcome to today's iOB business webinar. Really great topic for us this afternoon. Something that we're going to be talking about is organizing your digital agency, and just as importantly, organizing yourself to run the most effective digital agency possible. Okay, so if this is your first time joining us, I can see we've got a couple of new faces here. It's always wonderful to see you, and thank you so much to our regular members who come on and join us as well. It's a real pleasure to see all of you. If this is your first time on an iOB business webinar, the way that these sessions work, we do a little introduction with me, just here myself, my name is Ben, and then we go on to a 15 to 20 minute presentation. We run through that, and then we're going to finish up with a very brief Q&A at the end there, okay? So if you do have any questions throughout today's session, throughout today's webinar, feel free to ask them in the Q&A box. That should be a little gray button down the bottom of your screen, and you can ask them throughout the presentation, and I will grab them from you at the end. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm just going to get set up with today's presentation. Please let me know that you can see the screen okay and you can hear me okay. All right, so here we are. You should be able to see the presentation screen now. You should be able to hear my voice. What I'm going to do is go ahead and switch my camera off and we can get started. So we're at the 2 o'clock mark just now. I'm just going to give it a minute or two to make sure that everybody's on and everybody can hear and see me okay. Okay, so you can see that we've got members on from all over the place. Really cool to see people from so far away coming on these webinars as well. I myself am based up in Scotland. We're running the webinar from the UK today. So really cool to see you on here. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, cool. So we're just about getting ready to kick off. All right, so let's begin, okay? Confirmation now you can hear and see me okay. Brilliant. Okay, thank you for that. So talking about today, organizing your digital agency. Okay, now of course, if you are a current digital agency owner or if you're looking to become a digital agency owner, these are some of the most crucial skills that you can possess in order to complete the most effective digital agency you can possibly run. Okay, so in today's presentation, your presenter is me. My name is Ben Porter-Smith and I'm a professional business coach. I'm the resident business coach here at iOB Business, and I specialize every day in working with small businesses and helping them achieve stability and growth. This is exactly what I'm going to be talking about with you today. Okay, so our presentation topics today are: number one, routines. Okay, now routine is absolutely crucial, both as an entrepreneur, as a business person, and also when it comes to running an effective digital agency. So that's the first thing we're going to talk about today. Second thing we're going to talk about today, something you may or may not heard of before. It's called time segmentation. Okay, time segmentation is a really cool little trick that we're going to run through together, and it's going to show you how to split up your day and your week in the most effective way. Okay, and we're going to finish up today with client management. Okay, so those clients that are so valuable to you, how do you manage them throughout your digital agency? Okay, so beginning with topic number one today, routines. Okay, now there's two components to this. The first component is establishing a personal routine. Okay, so you may be in some form of personal routine already. We're going to run through why this is so important and so effective to running a digital agency and organizing it properly. Now, let's begin, okay? First thing we want to do is establish consistency in your mornings. Why? Because if you start the same day each way, you begin to establish consistency, you begin to establish a routine. Okay, so we're following a pattern in our day-to-day life. What does that do? Well, number one, it eliminates the decision-making process. Now, as individuals, as human beings, we all have a finite amount of energy within our brain that we can spend and expend throughout the day. Okay, so if we spend less time deciding on things like what clothes are we going to wear today, what are we going to have for breakfast, what time are we going to leave the house, when should we get to the office today, yada yada. Okay, all of these decisions completely pointless and unnecessary. If we establish consistency in our mornings, we leave more room for the important decisions that we're going to have to make on later in the day. Now, if you imagine this the same as a bank account, each day you have a certain amount of money to spend. The mental energy that you have is no different. Okay, it applies differently, but the concept is exactly the same. So when we don't have to make as many decisions, we can make more important decisions with more ease. So keep your mornings consistent. Okay, and we're going to talk about something else that's quite important here. Next thing we need to do, consistency in your education. Digital agencies are one of the most dynamic businesses that exist today. That is because they operate in the online and digital space. The digital space is continually evolving all of the time. The agencies that can stay on top of the evolution, they're learning new things, they're hearing about new algorithms, they're looking at new ways for advertising platforms to reach new customers, okay? If you are doing this, you will be a leading digital agency. Now, why is this relevant to organizing a digital agency? You might be asking me. It's because one of the things here that we want to do is we want to achieve a productive, and not only that, we want to also achieve a stress-free running of our digital agency. Now, stress can occur when we feel like we're falling behind the ball, when we're not up to date with current news, we're not up to date with current techniques and methods, okay? So when we're talking about consistency in your education, it doesn't matter how often you do it or how much you do it, just make sure that it's consistent and it's enough, okay? So if we're looking at maybe 20 minutes a day, maybe 30 minutes a day, okay? Maybe you do it 3 times a week, maybe you do it 5 times a week, but keep it consistent, okay? Now, if you're gonna ask me the question now, probably in your head, why would I do this and what areas would I focus in? Okay, so the key answer to this question here is, where should you focus your education? Focus it on your niche, okay? Everybody has an ideal client. Everybody has a type of person they want to serve as a digital agency. So highlight who that is and make sure that your education is relevant to them, okay? It's the most productive way that you can do it. Now, the final point I want to talk to you about here on personal routines before we run through an overview is that you need to switch off. Okay, so going back to the mental energy dissipation, going back to the levels of where we're talking about something like burnout. Okay, if you're an entrepreneur, you're a budding entrepreneur, it's something you're thinking about, this is a phrase that you will have heard before, burnout. Okay, now when we switch off, we get that crucial mental rest that allows us to make complex and important decisions through the next working day. Okay, so if we're working late nights, we're not switching off, we're not giving ourselves that crucial time to recharge and rejuvenate, we're not going to have the mental capacity to make the decisions. Now, some of us are used to working so much and so often that we actually don't know what it would feel like to not have a busy brain, to not have that fog and cloud over us, okay? Now, the key to this, the key to get rid of the fog, the key to get rid of the stress, make sure that you switch off, okay? It's absolutely okay to switch off. In the case of an emergency, you deal with that. Unless it's an emergency, you do not, okay? So ensure that you switch off. This is a huge part of your personal routine, okay? So let's run through this. Now, earlier on in the presentation, I said there was a second piece of personal routine that I wanted to cover, okay? That second piece is the fact that when you establish a routine in your personal life, you're instilling the most important habit of consistency that you can then carry on into your business life, okay? Because if our personal life is disorganized, it's complicated, we're being pulled from left to right constantly, we're gonna come into our business with the same mindset and the same habits, okay? So this is something that we massively want to avoid. We want to make sure that we're implementing our personal routine in a consistent manner, and therefore we can carry that over nice and easy into the business routine, okay? So let's talk about now establishing a business routine, okay? Now, the first thing I'm going to share with you here is that your business hours must be consistent. There are multiple reasons behind this, okay? We're going to talk about client management at the end of today's webinar. The first reason that you must establish consistent business hours is for you. Okay, life is about balance. Life is about loving and enjoying your digital agency, but it's also about running it effectively. So when we're establishing consistent business hours, you are in the office, or the metaphorical office if you're working from home at the moment, at the same time every day. Okay, what this does is it tells your brain now is time to work. Okay, now lots of us are working at home at the moment, and hopefully that won't be for much longer. Okay, what that says at the moment is that we're having a hard time differentiating between personal enjoyment and personal fulfillment and being in the office, so to speak. Okay, so consistent business hours are going to help with that mental separation of, right, it's 8 a.m. I should be in the office by now already, so I'm going to work. Okay, now that can be until 3 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m., whatever that looks like for you. Okay, but just make sure that it works. Now, lots of us have other commitments, so some of us might prefer to do something like a split day. If we have something like a school run at the end of the working day, we go and do that. We come back to work for a couple of hours after, maybe until dinner time. Okay, but whatever that looks like, make sure that it is consistent. The reason behind that is so that you can separate nice and clearly where your work life is and where your personal life is. You can love them both equally, but everything is about measure. Okay, now the other thing that you're going to achieve with consistent business hours is showing everyone, when I'm at work, I am here. Okay, the worst thing that we can do for concentration and focus is dip in and out of our business hours like it's just a flexi time, happy to exchange it. Okay, we can't do that. The reason we can't do that is because it will divert focus and it will begin to affect the business. Okay, as I said, it doesn't matter what those business hours are as long as they work for you. The key is making sure that they're consistent. Okay, now the final piece I'm going to share with you on routines, okay, something that is massively important and something that I see as a business coach all the time is mentally preparing yourself to work. Okay, so this applies to both a personal and a business routine. Okay, The reason I say this is because if we're not mentally prepared to work, we're inevitably going to have a more stressful day, and we're going to find somewhat simple decisions maybe a little bit complicated, okay? Because we haven't taken the time to mentally prepare. Now, what I always advise in this specific situation is I know that a lot of us as entrepreneurs will wake up first thing in the morning, we'll go and check our business emails. If we see a complex or difficult email that we have to deal with, it sets us off on the wrong foot straight away because we're not mentally prepared to deal with that yet. You have literally just woken up. Your brain hasn't hit full functionality yet. You haven't had your breakfast, your coffee, your shower, whatever your morning routine is. You haven't done that yet to give yourself enough time to be physically sitting in a situation. Now, I know many of you listening to me right now can probably empathize with this. You can probably relate to exactly what I'm saying. Okay, it's such a common thing to check your emails before you've even started anything else for the day. So what I say when you're looking at mentally preparing yourself to work, give yourself a moment, okay? Wake up, have your morning routine, have your shower, have your breakfast, say bye to your kids, send them off to school, and then deal with this, okay? That is so, so important to divide business and personal and make sure that you are mentally preparing yourself to work. Mostly because you're going to be 10 times more effective when you actually hit that. Okay, when you actually hit that email, you're opening it up and all of a sudden it's not so intimidating because you're in that frame of mind. Okay, so let's move on now. Okay, time segmentation. If you had any questions at all on topic 1 for me, pop them in the Q&A box and I will grab them at the end of the presentation for you. Okay, so let's talk about time segmentation now. Okay, first tip that is utilized by high performing entrepreneurs is that high energy hours should be dedicated to high energy tasks. Now, high energy hours can be defined differently by different individuals, okay? Some might say that my high energy hours are between 8 a.m. and 12 p.m. Others might say that my high energy hours are between 5 p.m. and 7 p.m., okay? There's not necessarily a rule when it comes to where those high energy hours are, but you must evaluate yourself and be sure that you understand yourself well enough to know when you're at your peak and when you're beginning to decline. Because all of us as human beings will have these traits in our personality, in our physical makeup, that we are more energetic at certain points of the day and we begin to dissipate at other points of the day. Okay, now this is natural, it's normal, but it doesn't mean that it has to affect you negatively because you could actually use this to your advantage. Okay, so when we're looking at high energy hours, okay, I want to talk to you about high energy tasks. Okay, so we're talking about complicated emails. You need a lot of mental space for that. We're looking at important meetings. You need a lot of mental space for that. Okay, key decisions in your business, a new advertising campaign, for example, high energy task, okay? So the general theory here is that the low energy part of the day for everyone usually applies around lunchtime, okay? So you might have heard it's the afternoon slump, it's the lunchtime slump. And what's actually happening is when you get to that point, so say if you start your job at 8 or 9 a.m., you're working through till 12 or 1 p.m., okay? You have already put in a good few hours at the office. So your energy is already beginning to dissipate, okay? Then you'll go and have your lunch. Now what your body does at that point, and don't get me wrong, I'm not a personal trainer or a nutritionist, but what your body does when you eat food, it begins to expend your energy on digesting the food, therefore again, taking it away from your brain. Hence your afternoon slump as an entrepreneur, okay? So generally we begin to wake up again when our food is finished, when we're finished with that process, okay? So then we're getting back into the early afternoon, the energy is beginning to come back a little bit, okay? But it's up to you to assess, are you a morning person, are you an afternoon person, are you an evening person? When this is the case, put your important meetings in these hours, put your important decision-making in these hours, okay? Now leave stuff like admin, clearing up, a little bit of organizing, put all that to the low energy hours like 4 or 5 p.m. if you're a morning person. And if you're an evening person, put the low energy tasks in the morning if you're still taking you a bit of time to wake up, okay? So moving on now from energy prioritization, we're looking at prioritizing your tasks, okay? So each of us will have a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly list of tasks, okay? Now, whether you have these physically written down or not, that's another story. But essentially what we want to do is we want to write these tasks down and we want to begin prioritizing them in order of importance and how quickly they need to be done. Okay, so first of all, is this going to have a cash related benefit, financial related benefit to the business? If so, I want to do that first. Okay, when we look at prioritizing your tasks, we're looking at taking care of clients, that's high on the list. Doing something that earns money for the business, that's high on the list. Organizing files at the back of the office, right at the bottom of the list. Okay, so don't spend time where you could be doing something that will be massively rewarding for the business, doing something that's going to have little to no reward to the business at all. Okay, now of course, as business owners, as digital agency owners, one of the things that we prioritize here is money, cash flow, finance, all of it, okay? Money is what makes businesses tick. So anything that results in financial income for your business should be prioritized over menial, low income or no income at all tasks, okay? Now, if organization and admin is something that you prefer, you can look at outsourcing low-level tasks, and that list goes on, and it's a conversation for another day, okay? So what to do, write down your list of tasks and look at prioritizing them, beginning with financial impact and going down the list, okay? So next up, we have allocating certain tasks to certain days and ensuring consistency, okay? Now, this is another crucial piece of time segmentation. Why? Because it allows us to form habits and it tells our clients when they can and can't talk to us, okay? So whilst we always want to be readily available, we want to establish certain days for meetings, we want to establish certain days for admin, we want to establish certain days for reporting, reviews, metrics, that kind of thing, okay? So, for example, you might want to do your meetings every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. You might want to do your administration every Tuesday and Thursday afternoon. Maybe you want to do your big decision making on a Monday because you're just come off the weekend, you're nice and fresh and you're nice and relaxed. Okay, so again, very similar to prioritizing your tasks, write down the tasks that you do on a daily and weekly basis and sometimes monthly basis and begin to allocate these to certain days. Okay, so we want you to have a nice organized calendar. Okay, so let's say every Monday, 8 a.m. till 12 p.m., you take meetings. Every Wednesday, same time, and every Friday, same time, you also take meetings. Every Tuesday and Thursday, those are your admin days to catch up with the office, catch up with the business, okay? Every Friday afternoon, you have a debrief and you run through how the business week was, okay? But allocating certain tasks to certain days is so important because it allows you to manage your time effectively. Now, this can also come into things like establishing timescales for client projects, because if you know that you work on client projects for 4 hours every Wednesday, then you can work out how much time the project is going to take, and therefore you can give your client a realistic timescale. Okay, so allocating certain tasks to certain days and ensuring consistency allows you to have an overview of your entire schedule and your entire business. Okay, the last thing we want to be doing is letting the business run us. We're chasing our tail and we're thinking, oh no, I've just double booked a meeting, or I can't make that sale appointment today, or any number of things that could go wrong if we don't do this. Okay, so we don't really want to be chasing our tail and just throwing in meetings and appointments left, right, and center. We want to have nice, comfortable slots that we can adhere to easily because we have planned far in advance, okay? Now, doing all of the above will assist massively with your organization. An organized digital agency is a happy digital agency, okay? It's stress-free, it's easy to run, the staff are happy, you're happy, everyone's happy, okay? But the crucial part here that you must focus on is your organization. Now, the last and possibly one of the key pieces of this whole webinar is client management, okay? Now, one thing that I get very, very often as a business coach when I'm working with digital agencies is, I've got this client issue, how do I manage it? Okay, so that's something that we're going to talk about and we're going to run through today. Okay, so where we are, client management, let's begin. Okay, now this is an interesting topic, boundaries with clients. Okay, now this is something that we get so often because people don't necessarily know when to say yes and when to say no to their clients. Okay, what's reasonable, what's fair, and what isn't fair, okay? Now, what's fair is what's established in the offset. This is the most important thing that you can do with your client, is set the boundaries from the offset, okay? So when we're looking at client management, now I've heard stories before, and we have business owners picking up the phone at 11 p.m. to deal with something. We have business owners scheduling meetings that are just way too early for them, 6:30 a.m. in the morning, okay? We've got lots of examples and lots of cases that I could run over with you where boundaries with clients have been broken, okay? Now, the reason that this has happened is because they have not been established from the offset. So when we're looking at boundaries with clients, we want to be nice and clear about, okay, well, look, my working day goes from 9 a.m. till 6 p.m., okay? Now, within these hours, I'm all yours. If you want to contact me out with those hours, you can send an email and I'll get it back to you first thing in the morning, okay? Now, this also applies to not checking our emails when we're in bed, not checking our emails before we go to sleep because of stress and other clear indicators, and not checking our emails first thing in the morning before we're actually ready to deal with that yet, okay? So when we're looking at boundaries with clients, this is what is so important because we're looking at these different things and we're understanding what it is that we can check and what we can do when we're looking at boundaries with clients, because there's such a fine line that people feel, okay, am I pushing it too far? Okay. Now we have to understand as business owners, as digital agency owners, what is actually acceptable from a client and where we can put our foot down. So as long as you have established those boundaries from the offset, your working hours are clear, your meeting hours are clear, and you say, look, I don't do WhatsApp, I don't do text, I don't do phone calls unless they're organized, but I do email. And I'd be more than happy to speak with you that way. These are the boundaries that you need to establish, okay? Now, when you're looking at boundaries with clients and you're establishing this kind of area, this kind of element, okay, we naturally need to move on to analyzing your client capacity, okay? So every individual, every person will have a set amount of clients that they can take care of, okay? So our client capacity could come down to the types of services that we offer and the tiers of which we put those clients on, okay? So our client capacity will have a natural fill limit, whether that's 10, 15, 20, 30, etc. Okay. Now, another topic for a different day is when we're looking at our client capacity, there's ways that we can expand and allow for more clients. Okay. So we're working here on the basis that it's maybe you and possibly one other team member when I'm talking about client capacity in this situation. Okay. Now, what happens if we go over our client capacity? Our quality of care starts to drop. Okay. We can't respond to as many emails. We can't attend as many meetings. We can't make as many phone calls. We can't do this, 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 and this, okay? So do not breach your client capacity. Understand what that is and understand when you have hit your ceiling, okay? So if you know that on average, let's just say, for example, you work in website development. That's your niche as a digital agency, okay? If this is your niche, you know that it's roughly 4 hours per week needed to serve each client, okay? There's 40 working hours in a week, which means that you can serve 10 clients per week, okay? The more you understand this, the more you can understand your opportunities and your financial income. If you're making enough money out of your business, if you can make more money out of your business, the list quite literally goes on, okay? But the first thing you need to understand is when you have hit that client capacity, you want to stay neatly and nicely within that client capacity so that you can deliver the quality of care that each of your client needs, okay? So ensuring that your clients are getting the attention that they need, and this is comfortably achievable for your digital agency, okay? This is so important and I cannot emphasize this enough. So the key takeaways from the client management slide, okay? Make sure that your boundaries with clients are set from the offset. Everybody understands what is expected and what is acceptable, okay? Now the danger comes in if you accept a phone call at 10 p.m., all right? And in your head, oh, it's just a one-off, it won't happen again. You know, I need to do this for them this one time, okay? And then you get another call the next night at 10 p.m. and you're thinking, oh, I didn't really want to deal with this, but that's what the client needs. Before too long, this is going to become a regular occurrence from the client. And if you ever stop delivering that service, they're going to feel like you've taken something away from them that never really should have been there in the first place. Okay, so boundary with the clients is so important. Analyzing your client capacity, that's a huge part of organization right there, okay? Overloading our own workload is something that can be absolutely catastrophic if we're not managing it correctly. Now, as I said, that doesn't mean to say that you haven't got any options, because you absolutely do, okay? Your options for growth are there. There's outsourcing, there's delegation, there's different management, there's more efficiencies, there's automation, all kinds of things that we can continue to cover, and we will cover throughout more iOB business webinars, okay? So to recap on today's presentation, okay? Number one, implement a solid routine, both personally and in your business life, okay? This is absolutely crucial because it will flow from your personal life into your business life if you are strict and regimented with yourself. Now, as we're going through this segment, if you do have any questions, please get them ready for me, because in just a moment, we're going to go on to the Q&A section and we're going to run through that there, okay? So to recap, number one, implement a solid routine. Number two, be aware of your time segmentation, okay? Understand when you're planning things, when you're scheduling them, and make sure that you have a good overview of your calendar and of your schedule to make sure that you're doing everything that you can to keep your organization for your digital agency nice and neat, okay? There's lots of nuggets in this presentation to take home from today. And finally, ensure that you are taking care of your clients, okay? This is the biggest one. Now, the reason I emphasize this in particular is because taking care of your clients is what will help you build a solid digital agency. If your clients love working with you and you, just as importantly, love working with them, that makes for a wonderful, productive digital agency, okay? So thank you so much for taking the time to spend with us today. Thank you so much for absorbing the content. As always, I hope that it was absolutely valuable to you. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring up my questions from today's presentation. So you've still got time. If there is any questions that you have for me, I've got one just come in now. If there is any questions for me, make sure that you are getting them over to me. Okay. So the first question that I have from today's session, right, we are looking at how do I set boundaries with the clients whilst making sure they know I care? Okay, good question. Okay, because it's important, and I'm assuming this has come from a current digital agency owner who is potentially already in a situation of, okay, well, I'm doing a little bit out with what I should be doing, and I know that, and my family knows that potentially even, and I need to sort of withdraw a little bit from taking these calls outside of business hours. Okay, so my honest advice here is, if you can't make boundaries clear from the offset, okay, I would begin to refrain from deviating from any other boundaries that you've set, even for yourself. Okay, now if you're in this situation of, well, I'm already doing this for that client, how do I stop? Okay, now the easiest way to do this is position how you're going to say something, okay, because it's not always necessarily what we say, it's more how we say it. Okay, now positioning is a really, really important thing when we come to any kind of conversation. Okay, if I just said to the client at this point, imagine this was me, and I said, please don't call me anymore, it's unacceptable, that's going to be received very, very harshly, and they're probably not going to like it. Okay, but if I say to them, look, would it be possible to move the meeting time to potentially 4 p.m. on a Friday instead of 7 p.m. on a Tuesday? It just works better for me. I feel like I can help you more. I have more energy, and we can get through more productive items that way. And we can spend more time on the phone together. Okay, so positioning is always making it look like just as much of a benefit for them as it is for you. But a fantastic question. Thanks for asking that one. Okay, so I've just had a second question come in here today as well. Okay, so where are we now? How do I know when my energy is at its peak? Okay, so this is a pretty simple question. Okay, you will usually be self-aware. All right, now, if you struggle, the best way to monitor this and understand it is by keeping a daily journal. Okay, keep the daily journal for 2 weeks. Don't make it too complex. Don't make it too complicated. Just nice and simple. Okay, how are you feeling hour by hour? Are you feeling like you can deal with complicated tasks? If I put something on your plate right now and it was a big deal, it was a big decision you had to make for your company or your business, can you deal with it right now? Okay, that's the key question that I need to ask yourself. Okay, so keep that simple journal, simple diary, and put it through the working hours of your day. So 9 a.m., 10 a.m., 11 a.m., so forth until the end of your working day. And just keep track of your mental energy levels. Okay, so when you're looking at asserting high energy tasks, you could say, well, actually, I'm really, really alert on a Monday morning because that's right after the weekend. But by the time Friday morning comes around, I'm actually pretty shattered because it's the end of the week. So I'm not going to have any meetings on Friday at all. Okay, so another fantastic question. Thank you for asking that. And I'm just going to have a quick check, but I believe that might be the end of our Q&A today. Okay, so if you want to have a look at the IOB Business website, you can head to iob-business.com, have a look around. And if you don't have any more questions for me today, I believe that that will be the end of today's session. So once again, thank you so much for joining us. We're going live again 2 weeks from today, same time, 2 p.m. And I very much look forward to seeing you again then. Take care and bye for now.